Hi guys, the two main topics I wanted to cover today were one, the atmosphere being created by the propaganda machine of the media and the people pulling the strings behind the scenes surrounding this COVID-19 thing and how it's going to push you to do things that you normally wouldn't do. And number two, ways we can start to become more self-sufficient and walk away from these things that are happening and start to focus more on our lives and the things we can start to do and produce and become more self-sufficient, as I feel it is our responsibility to do. So number one, back to the atmosphere of fear that the media and the propaganda machine are creating surrounding COVID-19. And I think what's going on is right now, they're just pushing story after story, false statistics and fear-mongering and hospitals being overwhelmed and running out of medical supplies and people dying left and right surrounding this COVID-19. And the new model revealed by the White House today was, instead of 100 to 200,000 deaths, they were talking more like around 80 to 81, 82,000 deaths. And I find that really coincidental because right before all of this came out, I was reading articles. I was getting articles in my newsfeed all the time about how this is going to be one of the worst flu seasons we've seen. And the numbers they were talking about were in the range of 80,000 deaths for this flu season. So I don't know what's going on there. There's a lot of fishy things going on in the media. But what the media are doing right now is creating this sense of fear to control you. And they're elevating the white coat scientists, the religion of the white coats, up to another level where you're going to be so trodden on with fear and constant news and a bombardment of fear propaganda and fear porn, that where they're leading to with the solutions being drugs, mainly vaccines, you're going to be willing to do no matter what, because Bill Gates has come out and said, you know, we should have people social distance or stay at home until we've got this vaccine developed. And then once you got the vaccine, then you can go out into public. So that is a forced vaccine scenario. They're not going to force you to take it, but where they're going with it is saying you have to take this vaccine or have had this vaccine, otherwise you can't go into public. So essentially it is a forced vaccine. So when we talk about this system and this crazy world that we're moving into because of an invisible enemy that we're fighting, to where any of the experts can say whatever they want to you and fear-mongering you and pushing you to do whatever they want you to do, we have to start thinking about ways we can take control of our own lives. And I've always said, and this is a big philosophy of mine, is if you see something in a society that you don't like, or let's just take society in general, and we see these broken systems like the monetary system and the constant printing of money to bail out banks and how money has become worthless, and these other political systems that don't really work because we know they've been taken over by globalist systems and they just have their puppets put into place. So you take all these systems in society and you say, well, I don't like that. Well, in my opinion, the biggest thing that you can do to fight that is walk away. It's a discussion about energy. If you put energy into something, like if I focus my energy onto something, I'm going to propagate that thing, whether it's negative energy or positive energy. I'm going to focus on that thing, which allows that thing to survive and to thrive. So instead of going head on at these societal issues that we face, as far as being taken over by a medical elite and a globalist elite and a money elite, we have to start to think about how do we walk away from that system? How do we stop putting our energy into that system at all? And that could be, we can do that in a number of ways. And it can just start with little things. Like, I don't expect everybody to go out there and become self-sufficient in every aspect of life. It's impossible. This system has been designed to have you rely on all of the in-place systems, the monetary system, the healthcare system, whatever it may be. So you rely on those. The food system, and that's kind of what I want to focus on right now, is a couple of years ago, and I live in Arizona, my wife and I had been doing a garden. We had two big beds that we made with bedrock and we filled it with soil. And we had two big plots that we grew gardens. And I want to say maybe 10 to 15 feet by 10 feet, these beds were. And the amazing thing was, even being in Arizona, we didn't even set up a proper irrigation system. We were just watering twice a day. We were growing vegetables and food like crazy. And of course, in the middle of the summer here in Arizona, that it's very hard to grow certain things, like tomatoes don't do well in direct sunlight. So you have to build shade for them and all kinds of things. And we didn't really mess with that. We kind of focused on the things that just did really well here. We couldn't stop squash and zucchini from coming out of the ground. We couldn't stop the cucumber from coming out of the ground. Jalapeno peppers and other kinds of peppers were growing really, really well. Different kinds of herbs like cilantro was growing like weeds. We had more cilantro than we could handle. Garlic, other root vegetables do really well here. At least that was our experience. And when you start to do these things and you start to realize how easy it is, and whatever it may be for you, like maybe you're a really good seamstress and you want to make your own clothes and just stop buying clothes from certain companies like Nike, who uses slaves to make their shoes, things like that. For us, we grow food. I make my own dog food. We make a lot of our own food. And it's just becoming self-sufficient in those areas. And here's another thing too, like we're lucky to have a lot of local farmers in the valley here, in the Verde Valley. And if you can't do it yourself, then start supporting, you know, local growers. Like my farmer, Marshall, is on text. I can just text him and, hey, do you have eggs? Do you have chicken? You know, whatever it is. And you can buy a share in his farm, which allows him to sell you certain products and get around the red tape that normally he wouldn't be able to sell. So we have to start becoming more self-sufficient and turning our backs on these things. Don't become dependent on these systems anymore. It's sort of the concept of boycotting, except boycotting doesn't really work because you can never get enough energy behind it. And it's just stopping buying something in a boycott or stopping interfacing with something. And this is a little bit different. This is asking you to go out and create something so that, because the need will always be there. You'll always need food, you'll always need clothes and shelter. But if you can start to do some of these things on your own, and if you don't know how, then learn how. Just pick one thing. There's a million videos on YouTube, tutorials all over the place, online courses now that you can teach yourself to do anything. So even if you live in a small apartment in the city, you can put flower pots by your windows and you can grow things that way. You would be amazed at the abundance of food that you can grow. And that's sort of the challenge I would say for people right now, is to start growing food, because if you start doing it and your neighbors start doing it, the amount of food is just incredible. You have so much food that you have to share it with people. You have to start giving it away. And if you make little groups, you start forming little groups in your community of food growers, it's incredible. So we have to start focusing on systems that we can take over ourselves, start putting time and energy into those systems, producing for ourselves, and then we can start to slowly walk away from those other things that rely on us to survive, dependency of our needs to survive. And if you stop putting energy into something, it will cease to exist. That applies to anything, physical objects, ethereal objects, and things like institutions and societal systems. They will go away. They will no longer exist because you don't need it. And that's the whole point of the concept here. It also applies in some doctors are doing this in the healthcare system too, because they realize that the healthcare system is so broken that the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies have such a grip on the healthcare system that they're providing these separate care packages where it's like you pay a certain amount a month and you get full-on care from this doctor's office. A lot of people are doing it around here. And I know it's a big movement amongst doctors to start providing that service. And see, the great thing about that is now you no longer need the insurance system, at least in that regard, in a general practice sense. So you're going to your local doctor for your colds and your things and your common needs, and you're not paying health insurance for that, because health insurance is so ridiculously expensive and in this state of Arizona unobtainable. So we just need to start focusing on other things and being positive and just learn something, learn a craft, learn how to grow food, take up a hobby. You've got plenty of time to do it right now, and start learning to do something that you can become more self-sufficient of and walk away from society, because where society is going is a scary place. You have the Bill Gates of the world looking to control us all, vaccinate us all. God knows what's in those vaccines. In Monsanto's, God knows what they put in those chemicals that go into our food that totally change our whole systems. It's a really scary place we're going to, and we need to stop giving into the fear so that we're begging for safety from our overlords and our masters, and start taking control of your own life, because you are an amazing individual. You're a unique person. You're a powerful individual, and you need to remember that God is inside you. God is inside everybody, bad or good. There isn't a thing that exists in the universe that doesn't have God in it. And by that, I just mean, call it whatever you want, creative life force, the force, whatever you want to say. So with that positive note, I'll end this video, and I just challenge everybody to buy some seeds and grow some food.